Well, good afternoon and welcome to Voices of Faith Transforming the Community. I am grateful and thankful again to have this privilege. And this is what I call a master class on today, ladies and gentlemen, because we have what I call the guru of politics in the house on today, a good friend and brother in the person of Mr. Carl Mack Williams, as we call him. Let me pause just for a minute again to tell you to like and share. If you want to know the state of politics, this is the session. This is where it's going to happen. So we're grateful to have all of you. The purpose of the Saginaw African American Pastors is to engage leaders at every level, with the purpose being to ensure that equity is demonstrated across the board. We meet with leaders on every level, from housing to health to education to law enforcement to financing, etc. And the goal is to make Saginaw a better place. Our general thought is this: when all of Saginaw is given equity, then Saginaw grows and becomes a healthy community. And that's really our premise as pastors. We're thankful again to KISS 107, Miss Yvonne Daniels and the crew. And again, our guy that keeps us on tap all the time, Mr. Matthew Lester. We're grateful for him helping us do what we do today. Let me pause right now and introduce to some, present to others, a good friend and brother. And again, he is a superhero in politics for us. I know y'all hear me say that a lot. I've had a lot of people on, but I really do mean this about every person that has come on. They have come on to empower us, enlighten us, and help us understand what's going on in our world. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me pause right now and have Mr. Carl Mack Williams introduce himself and tell you a little bit about him. And then we're going to roll up our sleeves to get started. So, Mr. Williams, again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us on today.
Thank you for inviting me, Pastor. As you said, I am Carl Williams. I have served in the political arena for about 30 years. My political career actually started with the Saginaw City Council. I ran for that, was successful my first time out, and I served for 9 years.
Okay.
In my last term that I won, I came off early to run for the state representative for the 95th district seat.
Okay.
And I won that and went to Lansing and served there for as long as term limits allowed. At that particular time, term limits were 6 years.
Okay.
I served for those 6 years. And after that, I got an appointment from then Governor Jennifer Granholm to work in the Department of Corrections for 4 years. I was the director of public relations for the Prisoner Reentry Initiative, where I went around. I had the whole state, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And we would go around talking about what was being put together to give those people coming out of prison the opportunity to stay out of prison, because recidivism was just so high.
Wow.
And a lot of it had to do, honestly, with a person coming out and not having the tools to change their lives if they wanted to. And a lot of them eventually went back to doing the things that put them in prison in the first place in order to survive. So I thought the initiative was a very, very good thing. I served there for 4 years. Then I came out and I retired after that because I had previously worked for Delphi Automotive Systems for 24 years in supervision. So it was time for me to go down that yellow brick road. So I retired. And after that, just made sure that I served on a couple of boards that I thought were doing things to improve the human condition.
Excellent.
And that was, I was vice president of the Saginaw NAACP. I was the chair of the political action committee, and I currently serve as one of the members of the board of governors for Saginaw Valley State University.
And you know what's interesting, Brother Williams, is you still look 20. You still look 20, and that's just, again, a testament to your life. It's a life well lived. You've done some phenomenal work in our community. We are forever grateful for your service and what you continue to do, because I mean, throughout this entire tenure that you've had serving, you've always been a mentor and a person that's been very out front trying to help people. And again, that's part of our conversation. If we get a chance, we'll swing back to the piece on corrections. You might know some things that we need to know there. I want to just have you open up and talk about the state of our country now, and just kind of talk about what you're seeing, some of the things that's going on, and some things that we could possibly do. It's going to just be what I call a freestyle conversation. So please just share what you see what's going on. Tell us what we can do. Tell us, how or what you see going on.
Okay, in reality, that'll take years, but I will do my best in the time that we are allotted. I will ask this of you.
Okay.
If I in my talking, if I tend to get a little too partisan for you, just let me know.
All right,
because I'm passionate about all things I do, and it comes out.
I hear you.
In terms of the state of politics and government now, as I see it, it is truly in a state of flux.
Okay.
Leading up to this past election, everywhere I could, on community connections with Miss Harvin, and just everywhere I could speak, I tried to warn is a hard word, but it's the only one that comes to mind. I tried to warn people of what was going to happen as I saw it. I tried to tell people that normally, come every election, almost every politician tells you that the sky is falling and you got to do this, you got to do that. But this last time I told them it was. The sky was actually falling.
Wow.
And I pointed to Project 2025.
Yes, sir.
And I feel free in discussing that even now, because it was out there. It wasn't anything that was hidden.
Right. It wasn't a secret.
No. It basically told you what kind of blueprint was being put in place for the president of their choice, in terms of getting their agenda filled. And even though it was tailor-made for one of the candidates at that particular time, he constantly tried to distance himself, said it had nothing to do with it.
Gotcha.
But if you looked at his Agenda 47, you saw that they correlated well, even together.
Okay.
And I was especially dumbfounded by some of the reasons I heard from people of color as to why they were flipping their vote this time and their allegiances, or why they were just doing what they were doing. I heard things like, I'm going to sit out this election because I'm angry. And I tried to tell people that, if you don't vote, you just did.
Wow.
Yes, sir. You really just did. Also, I heard things from people of color saying things like, well, I'm voting for this candidate because he met me where I was. I'm still trying to understand what that means. And then I heard things like, well, I'm voting for this particular candidate because he's going to stop all the fentanyl from coming into the United States. And I wanted to tell them, do you know who's the biggest producer of fentanyl is? It is the United States.
Wow. Wow.
But people had their minds made up and they were going to vote. I will say this again. Candidates that were running, especially one, told you exactly what he was going to do if he won. It was just no secret. And I'm not a gloating person, but the reality is people have now gotten what they asked for.
Amen to that.
And it's tight because it's been about 3 weeks since the presidency was assumed by this individual, and we're in a real state of flux. One of the things that you hear people talk about all the time is how they've never seen anything like this, anything that could be that bad. Ern Tatum, here's a fact. After all the political rhetoric is done in any situation, the real name of the game in politics is, can you count? if you have the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
you can do what you want to do.
Right.
You can do what you want to do. As it stands now, the acting president has the House of Representatives in Congress,
Mm-hmm.
the Senate. He has both those majorities, and we have a Supreme Court that has said that the president is immune from any kind of consequences, anything that he or she does, as long as they're in office.
Wow.
Okay, so you just consider that for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you look at people who have been put in critical condition positions, rather, as department heads,
Mm-hmm.
Department of Health,
Mm-hmm.
the Army, Armed Forces, you just name it. When you look at that, and again, I'm not talking out of school because it's all out there on the table. People
Correct.
are not hiding
Correct.
anything, and you see that not only are these people being put into these really important positions, but also that the criteria seems to be not that you're an expert in terms of expertise in your particular area,
Right.
but
Right.
they're just that you're loyal
Right.
to the president of the United States,
I'm with you.
which is really crazy, because from Congress and all of these people, the loyalty is supposed to be to the Constitution
Yes, sir.
of the United States of America, which makes sense to me.
Of course it does.
There are a lot of things that still needs working on, as I see it, particularly as it pertains to people of color.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that this great experiment called America has been working well and advancing.
Mm-hmm.
I think something like this is going to put a stumbling block, to
Wow.
say the least,
I got you.
in terms of what we want to do. I mean, from day one, what I have seen is just a coming out of the gate of slash and burn,
Mm-hmm.
and a retribution tool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So far,
Yes.
and that can't do anybody any good. I am hoping that what I'm afraid is going to happen does not happen. But when I look at the blueprint that Project 2025 put in place for the president for his first 180 days, and I see what is being planned, for instance, for the Department of Education, it is scary. It is scary when you think like Title I may be destroyed. It may be destroyed.
Wow.
And, you're looking at trying to level with Title I, trying to level the playing field, that people who are in a position of poverty, to help them in terms of trying to level the playing field,
right,
gone. Gone. The things that potentially may be gone is really, really crazy when we look at it. I was just going over before I came again, the things that may happen. We're looking at the potential gutting of the Department, as I said, of Education. We're looking at the potential elimination in that of Title I, which is targeted assistance for people of the poverty level. We're looking for a potential replacement of federal funding with block grants, kind of block grants that have no strings, just send the money to the states with no strings to it, so that they can do whatever they want to do, particularly in terms of private schools.
Wow.
And you're looking at, okay, well, what happens to public schools, if that kind of thing happens? And then we're looking at, if I fund you with federal funds, then we're talking about, I'm going to codify book banning. There's certain books you can or cannot read. I'm going to make sure that classroom censorship happens. And I'm going to eliminate things like Head Start. And when you look at the potential of those things, and you look at some of the things that are already taking place, like in Florida, in the schools, in terms of history, where certain books are banned, and all my life I've been taught that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yes,
You've
sir.
got to know your history.
Yes, sir.
Which brings me to this point. if people have not realized in these past 3 weeks the danger that we're in, please read what happened in Germany leading up to World War II.
Wow.
Just look at it. Look at what happened with military. Look at what happened with books and the burning of them. You know, look what happened to the media. You know, and how it's honest. And you see things and say, "Wow,
Yes, sir." It's
wow,
almost mirroring.
I'm
right
looking
now.
at these things
Yes,
again. I was listening last night. I think it was to this certain news organization being banned from White House briefings now.
Wow.
They can't come in. And I guess because they made somebody upset or asked them the wrong question. So, you know, they can't. And, you know, I looked at the owner of the Washington Post, who has just put out messaging saying that all of his editorial boards have to write about whoever he endorses. They are not free to write.
No freedom of speech.
No. And as I said, just read what happened to Germany leading up to World War II. It's almost a mirror of what is going on. And I think that as with just before the election, I think that a lot of people who are starting to become afraid now thought before the election, well, they're not talking about me.
Right.
You know, it's not going to happen to me. And already people are saying, I didn't think he was talking about me. You know, when this happened to me. I mean, it's really crazy when you look at the department heads that have been put in that look like they have no idea of what they're doing and just playing everything by ear and what that's causing. You know, especially was that USAID piece,
yes, sir,
where they froze the funding, and you know, Ebola outbreaks in Africa, and now they can't do anything. And what that means is a lot of people are going to die. Send it to the Supreme Court. And by the way, I've never seen the Supreme Court react to anything in 24 hours.
Amen to that. I thought that was strange myself. I'm glad you brought that up.
There was a court order for them to unfreeze that money.
Yes, sir.
They got that to the Supreme Court within 24 hours, and the Supreme Court is now saying, "Oh, everything, freeze it till we look at it again." You know, which you almost know what the answer, the outcome of that's going to be.
Right.
I think that we've got some serious problems going on. I think with the military, it's the same thing. You know, going overseas, telling our allies just anything you want to. You say to yourself, not only does it look like people are trying their best to use a wrecking ball within the United States, but also a wrecking ball outside of the United States with our friends.
Yes, sir.
With our allies. Pastor, when we look at history, for the most part, there were exceptions, but for the most part, the greatest civilizations that have existed were not destroyed by external forces.
I hear you.
They imploded.
Yes, sir.
They were destroyed from within. And I am praying that we don't do that to ourselves, that we do what we need to do. And I would like to, as we go along, talk about some of the things that I think that we can do.
Amen to that. Well, you know, there again, and all can sit and just absorb this vast treasure trove of information, because there again, you know, time is ticking. And, you know, what has to happen now is, and you'll share that with us, you know, what do we now begin to do? You know, the election is taking place. We're now in a new state of being, and every day there's something new happening. It's the shock in all type of format that's happening. And people saying, okay, well, what do we do about this? What do we do about this? What do we do about this? Well, we've got to do something rather than sit there. And so there's a term that's been thrown out there, and we'll talk about this on the other side of the break. This whole term that I keep hearing, constitutional crisis. And what does that mean? And so give us a minute. We're going to take a brief break here. We're going to come back because again, I think those are all terms that our country needs to know what it means. How do you reach that point Are we there? Are the signs there? So everybody stay tuned. The master class is going to take a brief break. We'll be back in just a few seconds. You've got to hear the second portion of this conversation on today. Hey, we are back. Voices of Faith transform the community. And again, one of the unique things I like about this broadcast is it gives us a platform to speak, to deliver our opinion. And at the end of the day, one of the things I understand, and scripture says this, can two walk together unless they agree? One of the things that I've always tried to do as a pastor is trying to say, okay, you may not agree, but let's agree to disagree. And I think that's the way it should be. That's what freedom is about. Everybody being able to do those things that they want to do. And everything that you're sharing is just flat out there for anybody to go research and find out for yourself. And you've been sharing with us kind of the status of our country. And we left off on this piece talking about constitutional crisis. We hear that. I keep hearing that almost every day. I'm hearing it on different platforms. What exactly does that mean? Have we arrived at that point? What has to happen if that's the case for our country?
I definitely think that we've arrived at that point. And I say that because people take oaths who go into office, especially like Congress, for instance, they take oaths particularly to uphold the Constitution.
Gotcha.
Well, when we look at what has happened in the first 3 weeks of this presidency, we see people just walking past the Constitution, basically saying, "Well, I'm not going to do it," or I'm going to do whatever I please.
I got you.
And that was the whole idea of putting people in place that would not act as guardrails against them. That is what's going on. And another thing is, Pastor, I think a lot of things that we have always taken for granted and thought were legal, or rather the law,
all right,
it's not.
I'm with you.
And what we're finding is that a lot of this great experiment called America was built on the honor system. And what we're finding out is we've had people pushing that envelope and pushing way past that honor system and getting away with some things we thought people could never get away with. I am not coming to Congress to any committee. That was something that was unheard of before. People are just walking past it. And I think right now what is going on, we have people, especially in Washington, D.C., who are saying, I'm going to see just how far I can take this thing, because I really want to be like a couple of fellows overseas.
I agree.
Who are dominating their societies, and it looks good to me.
Yes, sir.
And I think I want to kind of try to be like them. That is how we are really challenging the Constitution of the United States simply by having people who are not abiding by it.
Correct.
Who are not abiding by it. And we have to make sure that they do. And there are some things, Pastor, that we can do. But before we do, I think one of the things that's going to help us get started is, I was alluding to earlier, people saying, I didn't think that he meant me.
Right.
I didn't think this was going to touch me.
Right.
What's going to happen with putting all these people as head of these departments who have no idea of what they're doing, and in firing all of these federal workers by the thousands. What's going to happen when income tax checks don't show up on time? What's going to happen with your personal information, including your bank account number?
Correct.
If it's misused, because people have it now.
Of course.
They have it now. They've taken it. What's going to happen if Medicaid gets cut to the bone? You remember days when you couldn't get any emergency in the hospital because people didn't have insurance.
Right.
And so they would go there. What's going to happen when that Medicaid? It's going to happen again. What's going to happen to old folks when Medicare gets riddled? Like people are looking. I'll tell you this, people have got to look at this. If the president wants to extend that big tax credit that he gave to rich people and trying to make it permanent. If he does that, the money to take its place has got to come from somewhere in that budget.
Yes, sir.
And people are looking at those areas that I just named to get that money from there. I was on appropriations when I was in the House of Representatives.
Okay.
And when you put the budget together, you got all these line items. I'm afraid now when people are trying to keep tax cuts for the rich in place and have to get that money from somewhere, they go down those line items
and just start slashing.
The programs I just named, and it's probably in this big, beautiful bill, quote unquote, from the president.
I believe that
the House of Representatives just finished. Now, the Senate has a different bill.
Okay.
And they've got to reconcile the two.
Correct.
But still, those things that I named, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all of those things are still in danger. And if people don't understand anything else, they're going to understand what we need to do if they get hit by some of these things. If they don't get their Social Security check. And oh, by the way, whatever happened to lowering the price of eggs the first day? I went to the grocery store and bought eggs the other day. They're still going up. What happened to lowering groceries?
Well,
the very first day.
I hear you.
That's the other thing is I haven't heard of anything being done out of the Oval Office to address those things. All I've heard about is slash and burn and retribution, and people have got to look at that, just in terms of what we're going to have to do. I think that when we look at one party who's in complete control now, doing what they need to do, evidently they did something well to be able to get into that position.
Correct.
What I do not think is being done is the other party doing what it needs to do in terms of this, Pastor. Already, there have been many, many things that someone can put together, be able to point to as something real and tangible that's going to hurt you.
Right.
To talk to people. I cannot understand why the other party is not doing that, and then putting together a narrative for that and having the kind of person who is qualified to drive that narrative, because everybody can't.
Right.
But to have somebody to drive that narrative, I personally think, and I don't want to get in trouble for this one, and I know it, but I'm going to say it. To have some of the young people who are in Congress drive that narrative. That is the first thing that's going to have to be done. And it's right there.
Right.
It's right there for somebody to say, this was done, you saw this done, because what people look at is when you ask a person to do anything or to look at anything, whether they verbalize it or not, Pastor, the first thing that runs through their mind is, what's in it for me?
I hear you.
So when people see that they're being hurt, And if things go the way that they're going right now, if they keep on, some people are going to get hurt.
Oh, I believe that.
Because some funding is going to be taken away where we really can't afford to do it. When that happens, then somebody has to be, if things are going to change for the better, somebody's going to have to be there and be able to articulate to people not only that this is happening, but this is happening to you, and you know it because you felt it last week.
Yes,
when it hit you.
Yes, sir.
So far, I do not see that. I do not see that, but that is going to have to be done by the other party. They're going to have to start trying to control the narrative, and it's all right there, like I said, in terms of what's being done to them, and then be ready, because before we blink our eyes, the midterms will be here.
I agree.
And the midterms are, well, when you vote on people to go into Congress, the state, and all the rest of that, you got to be ready. You got to be ready to say, this was promised. Here's what you got. You know you did because such and such happened to you. And here's what we need to do. But you got to be ready.
And you can't start 3 months before the midterm.
No.
It should have been started day one.
No, that's as bad as going into a preacher's church the Sunday before the Tuesday election saying, may I speak?
There you go.
and the pastor haven't seen him all the while he or she's been
I've experienced it. I know what you're talking about. It's amazing. There again, if you think about it, in the past 30 days, tens of thousands of people have been laid off.
Yes.
That have had a career.
Yes.
Not people probationary, but you're talking about top level executives whose heart and passion for this country was demonstrated by the work that they've done.
Right.
And also just an impersonal email, hey, you're fired.
Yeah.
And so, it's probably going to get worse.
Yes.
Because you're talking about people who have nothing to support their lives, their livelihood, their children, if you got kids in college, et cetera, homes, autos, all of the above. And so there is no recourse because everything that used to support that is being or contemplating being trimmed down pretty much to just pieces now. And so, the country now has to brace for impact because it's happening right before our very eyes.
Yes, that's exactly right. Real danger is part of what you just spoke of. You're not only hurting people who have all those responsibilities that you just named, but also you're putting a really big void in the functioning of our company.
Yes.
What happens with airplanes when you decimate that whole organization that takes care of all of that? What happens with our veterans when you lay off thousands of people whose function was to take care of them?
Absolutely.
What happens in all those particular areas, because it's been recognized already, Pastor, because they cut all of these thousands of people that you named, and then the light came on. I really messed this up.
Yes,
I better call these people back.
And
now they're trying to get them back into place. And it's just a jumbled mess because of the bureaucracy of how the government is naturally run. Even getting them back, you're going to do terrible damage because it's going to take a while,
of course,
to get things back, because you start this train down the track and you can't stop it.
Of course not.
You cannot stop it. It is just awful. It's like a bad dream when you look at some of it in terms of who's going into office and what they don't know about that particular office. This slash and burn, laying off, firing thousands of people. Give me a 5-point email on what you did last week. Come on, that kind of thing.
Right.
And just, you're saying to yourself, I'm having a bad dream. This cannot be happening. But it honestly is. And we've got to do something about it. But I want to preface what I'm about to say in terms of what some of the things I think we need to do by saying this. It is not going to be something that happens overnight to correct what's already going on and the Constitution being challenged. We got to remember It took 50 years to overturn Roe versus Wade. 50 years.
Wow.
And people worked at it.
Right.
For 50 years.
Yes, sir.
They weren't playing about it. It took a while. This Project 2025, in my understanding, about a decade that was worked on to put that blueprint together. So things that are happening now just didn't happen. It took a while to put them in place. So it's going to take a while to reverse it. But when you ask the question, then how do we eat this huge political elephant? The answer is we eat this huge political elephant one bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And we have to do that. I think some of those bites are already happening. I say this to you not because I'm in front of your face or your show, but it's the truth. The Bible says it, and it's true. For lack of knowledge, the people perish. And that's in all areas.
Of course.
One of the things that programs like this do is at least give people good information to the best of your knowledge so that they have information. Because one of the things that happened in the last election was people got gypped. They did. They say that if you tell a lie long enough,
yes, sir,
anybody will believe it.
Absolutely.
People heard this certain narrative for so long that they started believing it. I think the same thing works in reverse. If you just tell the people the truth over and over and over again, it will work. It has to,
of course,
for my whole world to make sense.
Absolutely,
the truth has to work out. And programs like this, where you give people the information, where they at least have it, where they can deal with it, instead of just hearing from this individual that sucks up all the oxygen in the room every single day. That people need to know, well, no, that's not really true.
That's correct.
And be able to at least hear on a program like this what is the truth, or be guided to where they can get the truth, or encouraged to do their own study to find the truth.
Well, and there again, that's one of the things that we're trying to help people understand. You got to read more. You got to be more engaging. Nothing wrong with you having your own opinion, but sit and have the conversation so that we can reason and figure out, like you say, what exactly is the truth. And that's one of the things that I think pastors are now having conversation about. There's a lot of pastors I know that exist across the country that had made their mind, that's not my arena, but yet it is. Jesus wasn't just caring about people that came to church. He cared about everybody. And so as pastors, we've got to become externally focused as well as internally focused. And so this is one of those examples. A committed few, about 12 of us have committed, hey, we're going to start addressing the issues any way we know how. We're starting to meet more, which is a step in the right direction. We've not felt the impact of the decisions of the past 30 days yet. I don't think we have. No. I think it is still coming.
Right.
It's kind of like if you're fishing and a boat comes by at a high rate of speed, where those waves are going to take a minute to get to your boat, and then you'll actually feel it. Well, the decisions that are being made now across the country will start to trickle into our homes, into our finances, into our schools. It's going to take a little bit to get here, but by the end of the year, by the end of the summer, could be midsummer, whatever, you'll really start to see how the decisions made over the past 30 days are going to change lives forever. And so for people, our veterans that are accustomed to going and getting services, they've already started cutting those in terms of transportation services and various services they can access. People are saying, well, we're trimming the fat. Well, if this budget or this bill passes, you're not trimming anything. I thought, and you can help me because you might know more, that it's talking about adding almost $8 trillion to the deficit. Maybe I'm off on that in terms of this budget that they passed. Is that?
It's $4 trillion.
Okay, $4 trillion.
$4
okay.
trillion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And go ahead. Keep going.
But you're exactly right. And to add to, because you've put that perfectly, and to add to that, when people start feeling these things that you're talking about, people also need to look at things like, okay, this individual from South Africa who's come and is doing all this slash and burn and cutting thousands of people from our roles in all of our political organizations, our governmental organizations. If cutting fat is what they are honestly trying to do, be transparent about the 60-something contracts that you have with the United States government and what that's costing the government to pay. Is there any fat in that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? In shows like this, you can talk to people and encourage them to do certain things. So like you said, make up your own mind, but at least be knowledgeable when you make up your mind, because if you're just looking at something and then seeing it happening to you and you're just hearing one side of it, you're in this bubble where you're hearing one side of it. Before you know it, you will have been knocked down and you will understand where the punch came from, as I'm sure a lot of people feel right now.
Absolutely.
But as you said, they haven't felt anything yet because the wave hasn't really hit where it's hurt us. But I can tell you this, people are serious about what they're doing and what they're proposing with the cutting and who they're going to hurt. You can use your eyes, Pastor, and see certain things. Also, I watched the first cabinet meeting, and it was almost comical watching that meeting, seeing all the cabinet members, and then seeing the fellow from South Africa with the baseball cap get up and run the meeting.
Right.
You know, that's doing all the slashing.
Yes, sir.
And the cabinet members are saying nothing, nothing at all about, what is being said, what is going on. It's going to be challenging times for this. I am encouraged, though, because when I talk about taking that political one bite at a time to eat this political elephant that you're saying, I think that what we need, and I'm not being overly dramatic when I say this, and I think you can understand it, we need heroes.
Yes, sir.
Right now, if you ever was going to stand, right now, if you ever had said to yourself, for the privilege of being born with the abilities to walk and to talk and to see and to hear, I've got to pay that back. So the way that I pay that back is I try my best to improve the quality of life for another human being. We need those kinds of people, both in public service and what you're saying that you all are doing as pastors, because I was in the political system long enough to have experienced Bishop H.J. Williams.
You know what? And we got to end on that note, but a treasure trove of information. We got to come back and do another segment because there's so much more to talk about. I hope that everybody took notes on today. Let me again thank KISS 107 Alpha Media for the great work that they've done. Let me thank again New Life Baptist Ministry, Saginaw African American Pastors. Again, our trusty engineer does a fabulous job keeping us on task. Hey, take a minute, like and share, write your questions down, send them to us. We want to help America remain informed and empowered. God bless you. That is our prayer.